Welcome to the Ask Dr. Renee show. Okay, welcome back. That was our promo. We are sponsored by Archon Mounts this evening. Please, if you are interested in getting an Archon mount, visit their website and don't forget to use the promo code AskDrRenee so you can get 10% off. I am Dr. Renee, your host. This is the Ask Dr. Renee show. This show is here to motivate and inspire you to live the life you deserve. Last Tuesday, we started something new. We have Trep Tuesdays. So every Tuesday, we're trying to get another entrepreneur that's doing amazing things in different fields. And today, we have another awesome guest. So if you haven't watched the show before, you can see all the old episodes right there on my YouTube channel or on my website, AskDrRenee.info. But tonight, we have Gwen Jimmere, who is the founder and CEO of NATURALICIOUS, which is a hair product line. So we're going to learn all about Gwen and this amazing product line tonight. Welcome to the show, Gwen.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Renee.
Thank you for coming. So, Gwen, let's get right into it. So, you grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. So you are a Midwesterner just like we are.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay! So, what did you want to do when you were growing up?
I just knew I was going to be a singer and a dancer, and I was going to get my start by singing backup for Whitney, and I was going to dance for Janet. Those were my aspirations. And then after I got my training from them, I was going to break off and do my own thing.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I love it. That is awesome because I'm a triple threat myself. I sang, I danced, and I acted. So I completely get that because I always still envision my dance lesson with Janet myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just knew there was no telling me that was not going to happen.
So, I mean, was your mom a stage mom? Were you doing all the dancing and the singing and the...
I didn't really do a lot of singing. The singing was pretty much in my bedroom and the shower, but the dancing I did a lot of. So I was in a lot of, dance troupes and that sort of thing, and have tons of videos that my dad took with his old school huge camcorder on his shoulder back in the day. So yes, I did a lot of that. And even now, I mean, I'm not obviously a backup dancer for Janet, but about 3 or 4 times a week I dance, and I actually partake in a big, dance class that I do. So I still love it.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's great workout, great exercise. And it's like you're exercising, you don't think about it, which I think is always the best form.
Absolutely.
So when you got to high school, what did you say? Okay, now for real, this is what I'm going to do.
So in high school, I was planning to be a neurosurgeon.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I was going to be a neurosurgeon. I was going to go to Neo-UCOM, which is a med school in the Midwest in Ohio, where I'm from. There was no stopping me. I mean, I knew I was going to go to med school. I just knew I was. And I actually set myself up, so to speak, so that I could start college while I was in high school. So my 11th grade year of high school was really my first year of college. And I thank God for that opportunity because I quickly realized that I really didn't want to be a neurosurgeon after my first year in those classes. So I still love biology, still love science, still love, the neurosciences, but I realized that it wasn't something I really had a passion for and I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was more or less, something I had an interest in, but not a passion for.
Well, you're right. You made a good point. So you figured it out early so that you could save yourself the drama and the trouble of, going through that. Now, what do I do with that? So
Right.
that's cool that you figured it out.
Yeah.
So once you got to college, officially, what did you major in?
I majored in computer science, but originally I majored in journalism. And I majored in journalism because I loved to write. I just always had a really good knack and talent, like just natural talent for writing and the English language. And I'm kind of like a wordsmith like that. And I was going to be a journalist. And my mom, I remember being at my on-campus job, talking to my mom about all my aspirations of journalism. And she was like, Gwen, this is around the time when the not Gulf War, geez, I'm not that old. The the Iraq War, when Bush was in office, was going on, right? She's like, Gwen, I'm just gonna be honest with you. You're going to be one of those new journalists that they send out to the field, and you're gonna have the bombs going off behind you, and you're gonna be in Afghanistan, and you're gonna be scared to death. But if this is what you want to do, by all means. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that, Mom? You just told me that I'm going to be back here with bombs going off. So she's like, and besides that, you're not even going to be making that much money. So I was like, well, I don't want to be broke. So I guess I'll change my major to something safe. And I changed it to computer science, and I hated it. But I changed it to computer science because I knew I could make money. I knew it would be safe. I knew I wouldn't be in Afghanistan or Iraq. But it was so boring for me. It was no creativity involved with it from the end that I was working on. And I really just did it because for the money, and I guess that was an early lesson in doing things for the money versus for the passion. So that was that was undergrad.
Wow. And that's the exact same thing that Tanisha last week, that's what she majored in. And that's exactly that's why she did it too.
Oh,
wow. Parallels.
That's funny.
Hilarious. But no, that's really computer science. She did it for the money. So you graduated with a computer science degree?
I did. I cannot tell you how to program a thing. Nothing.
So you have this wonderful computer science degree and you live in the Midwest. So who do you go work for?
So I worked for Microsoft for a little bit.
Wow.
I did work for Microsoft. There's an office in Columbus, Ohio. I'm from Cleveland, so it's like 2.5 hour difference. Right. So I moved to Columbus, worked at Microsoft for a little bit, and I was the only person who looked like me. I graduated from college early. Remember, I started college 2 years early. So I graduated in 4 years, so really 2 years earlier than I should have. So I'm like, 20, I'm 20 years old. I'm working at Microsoft and I'm in a room full of men, mostly middle-aged, who don't look like me. I'm ready to go to the club. I'm ready to party. I'm in a new city. I want to meet people. Like, where the guys at? Where the girls at? And it was none of that at my job. And I just could not relate to anybody. It was not fun for me. And so I ended up staying in Columbus, working at Microsoft for a little bit, and realized that I'm not the type of person who can just do something just for money. I can't. I mean, I was 20 years old. I was making really good money to be 20. But I dreaded getting up every day. And I just didn't want to live like that. So I ended up going back to grad school. And I went back to grad school for communication. And I loved it. And I've been thriving in whatever I do ever since then because I've been doing something that I actually really, really love.
That's awesome. So, like I said, some people do know your story because, of course, I've seen it places too. Oh, and you guys, we are both in this month's Essence magazine. So definitely go get Essence this month because we're both in here.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So, and you look, I need to be in the, let me stop. I love the section you're in. You're in is a good section too. So, but look, and I need to join the ranks.
Please, you're already there. They just didn't put you in that section this month, but you was there a long time ago.
Okay. So you went to grad school, and so tell us what happened. So you leave grad school.
Mm-hmm. I left so I graduated from grad school. Like I said, I've always had a knack for wordsmithing and writing and things like that. And so majoring in communications, I was working at a publishing company. And it was fun. It was kind of very cheeky, odd publishing company, but I worked there and it was great. And I was getting paid peanuts. But again, I was in grad school, so I expected that once I graduated, my salary was going to increase. Well, that didn't really happen. And I was really upset about that. And so I just started like randomly applying for every job I could find that has something to do with communications or marketing or something like that. And I ended up 6 months out of grad school getting a call from Ford Motor Company. And I did not apply for that job, which is so bizarre because I don't remember applying for this job. I definitely didn't apply for a job in Detroit. I know that much. But somehow they found me. And they ended up, probably because my resume was just all over the internet. So they ended up reaching out, and I got a email from the person who would end up being my boss. I did not believe it was Ford because, one, I hadn't applied for the job in the first place. And two, I'm like, how did Ford find me? You know? And so I researched the guy, found out that he was just a rock star in the digital marketing world. And I even had my IT person at my job check the IP address to confirm that this was not a scam. So I was so like, how did Ford find me of all people? Like, so he was like, yeah, it really came from Detroit. He showed, he told me the address it came from. So I'm like, okay, so this is legit. So I emailed the guy back, and we ended up setting up a number of interviews. First a phone interview, and then I had an in-person interview. And there were, from what I was told, there were 3,500 people who applied for this particular job. And it was such a blessing for me because I did not apply for it. And it's just like divine intervention, how God moves mountains and God makes things work. I went from my editorial job making $12 an hour. Suddenly I'm like six figures, like really from boom, boom, right? Working at Ford. And I'm thrust into this like world of super corporate nature, right? Prior to that, now mind you, I'm working at this publishing company. This publishing company was so lax. You could come to work and bring your dog. You could even come to work and wear your pajamas. That's how lax it was. So I go from that environment to, and it's like, work whatever hours you want to work as long as the work gets done kind of thing, right? To working in corporate. And I'm the youngest person. I'm the only woman who looks like me. I'm the only brown face. And it was quite different, but in retrospect, I learned so much from my boss because, again, remember, he's a rock star in this area. I mean, I kid you not, we would go places and like conferences, and people would be asking for his autograph. And I'm like, these chicks are thirsty, like who is this? They're super like on top of who he is. I'm like seeing him on CNN all the time. He would always be on MSNBC talking about digital marketing, and he was a really good person to learn from. And everything that I learned from him, having been thrust into that arena, I took along with me once I started my business. So how I've been kind of able to maneuver and do things, starting out on a very shoestring budget, was solely due to the boot camp that I had when I was at Ford.
Amazing. Yeah. So so first of all, because you're this communications person, it's not a wonder then that you're a blogger.
Yeah, well, I blog. I wouldn't call myself a blogger.
Well, you blog.
But yes, I do write.
People who blog.
Okay. Okay, well then yes, I do write. I kudos to people who actually only blog for a living. I mean, I love them. They're so awesome. So I'm not quite in the ranks with them because my blog is a subset of my product. But yes, I am a blogger in that sense.
Yeah. So that, like I said, that it totally makes sense because you were this writer and everything.
Yeah. I actually I didn't mention this, but my role at Ford was really to come in and help to separate in the eyes of the consumer, to separate Ford from the rest of the competition. Because at that time, the auto industry was in a downturn. And, Ford, Chrysler, and GM were kind of all looped together. And Ford really wanted people to know, like, hey, we didn't take the buyout. Chrysler and GM took the buyout. We're better than them. That was really what they were trying to do. So social media was really new from the perspective of brands using it to connect with consumers. So people were using it to talk to each other, but companies weren't using it to talk to people. And so Ford was really one of the first, if not the first, big, huge companies to utilize social media in the way that it did. And so now it's a huge case study that is used in universities and all sorts of things like that. So it was really cool for me to have been part of that team that was utilizing social media in that way. So again, learning how to select bloggers, how to vet them, how to do digital marketing on a no budget was pretty much what I learned at Ford.
How long were you at Ford?
So I was at Ford directly for 2 years. And then once I had my son, I actually moved over to Uniworld Group. So Uniworld is the agency of record for Ford, but Ford was still my client. I literally, my office at Uniworld was literally across the street from my office at Ford. And my main client was Ford. So technically I still worked for Ford, I just didn't work at Ford. So all in all, I worked on Ford business for about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years.
Okay. So when did you start making your products? And because I know you eventually that side hustle became the full time. So
yeah.
When did that become your side hustle?
So
and how did you even start that? I mean, not many people can go in the kitchen and just, here we go, and it's stuff that actually works.
Just Betty Crocker it up. So so basically I was pregnant with my son, and I had recently got married. Got pregnant with my son, and I was watching the movie Good Hair. So this is around like 2011-ish, maybe 2010, probably 2010. So I seen the movie, and in the movie, Chris Rock and a cosmetic chemist take an aluminum can and they submerge it into a vat of relaxer. And this can just disintegrates in minutes. And I'm pregnant and I'm emotional, and I'm like, oh my God, my baby's gonna disintegrate, you know. And I'm freaking out because I don't want my baby to disintegrate, you know, because, you know, anything you put onto your body can go into your bloodstream and affect your insides. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what harm could be done to him? So in that moment, watching that movie, I decided no more relaxing while I'm pregnant. After I have him, then we can go back to relaxing. But during these 9 months, no relaxing. And I know I'm going to gain a lot of weight, right? Because I look, if I'm hungry, I'm about to eat, right? So I'm not about to be, you know, stressing out like, oh no, I gotta keep my finger. Look, if I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat. So I'm gonna gain weight. I can't get huge and have my hair looking a mess, right? It gotta be one or the other. So let me figure out what to do with this hair thing, right? So I came up in a household where my mom could make anything. I mean, she can bake, she can cook, she can make lotions and dishwashing detergent, and she can hang drywall, and she can reupholster chairs, and like everything, you know. And so I kind of grew up in that environment where if you didn't have it, you just made it, you know, you made it do what it do. And so I knew what like almond oil would do for your hair and your skin versus jojoba oil, and what shea butter might do versus cocoa butter, and all that sort of thing. So I kind of had that just knowledge through osmosis and immersion, you know, growing up. I do not have a cosmetic chemistry background. I know nothing about that sort of stuff. But I just went into the kitchen with the knowledge that I had from growing up with my mom around. And I started mixing up butters and creams and oils. And I came up with a pretty decent, you know, hair care system for myself. Because when I would go to the store, I would look for hair products that were for natural hair. And they all said natural. But you looked at the ingredient list and they were nothing but not natural. You know, they were every chemical you could imagine was in there, which completely defeated the purpose of me trying to go natural. So again, I go back into the kitchen, I'm mixing stuff up, and I figure out something to make for myself. It wasn't amazing, but it served its purpose, right? And I'm finding that it's taking me, you know, 3-4 hours to do my hair, which is cool because I'm pregnant and I'm like, I'm, you know, on maternity leave by this point, and I'm like, I'm silking it, I'm treating myself. Once my son was born, I quickly realized that babies do not care if it's wash day. They don't care if you need 3 or 4 hours. They're like, look, it's time to eat. It's time to play. I'm wet. I need you to do something about this. You know, I'm going to cry. And, you know, you work on their time. And I was like, how are parents spending 4 hours on their hair when they got this kid over here wanting attention? And I was like, this 3-4 hour thing is not going to work. So I went back into the kitchen and I started thinking about RX for brown skin. Are you familiar with this? RX for brown skin? So it's like proactive for women of color. right?
Okay.
And
Oh, I
so,
never heard of that.
okay, so I've seen like some infomercials about it, and I was like, how come they have these, these sets of products, like 3, 4 products in a set for skin, but they don't have anything like that for hair? And I was like, I wonder how I can make that happen for hair, right? And so I went back into the kitchen and looked at what I had already created. That was kind of subpar. And I said, okay, how can I combine all these different steps? So I'm washing, conditioning, deep conditioning, leave-in conditioning, and detangling my hair. How can I put that all into one product? So I just have to buy one product as opposed to doing all those different steps. And I figured it out. And so then I went to the next step, which was moisturizing and styling and heat protecting. And I created a product that did all those things. And so my goal was to create 4 to 5 products that would do all the steps that I needed. And that's what I ended up coming up with. And when I tell you that I used the products for the first time after I made them, and I was just like the gates of heaven open for my hair. Because even though my little, like, whatever I had before was okay, my curls were not like going boing. They weren't doing that. They were just kind of like, And once I tried what I had created, it was like boing, pop, pop, spring, spring, just everywhere. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was literally going from spending 3 hours on my hair to spending 10 minutes on my entire wash day. And I was like, women are going to love this. So I gave it to my friends and my family. They loved it. And the ball just kind of started rolling from there.
Wow. 10 minutes. Good Lord.
Yeah. If you've never seen me do my live wash day on Periscope, you have to watch it. I literally get in the shower and wash my hair live.
I've seen you wash other people's hair. I never saw you do yours.
Oh, you gotta watch me.
Maybe I did once. I might have once.
You gotta watch me do mine. It's live in the flesh. There's no editing. It's not on YouTube where I can cut and slice and dice. No, it's real time. 10 minutes tops.
Wow. That is awesome. So you started making these. So so then you got to go back to work after you have a baby and you doing your thing. So then what happened? And then that changed everything.
So I go back to work and I realized, so I feel like the theme that we've been discussing so far is the realizations I'm coming to in my life. I didn't really love being a doctor. I didn't love computer science. So I eventually realized that I'm excellent at what I do, but I'm not a good employee. I'm just not. Because I always have a side hustle. I always have a side thing going on. And my side thing is really my main thing. And so I treat the side thing like it's my main thing because it's what I'm passionate about. And then the job becomes the side thing, right? So I'm at work, like using company ink to like make copies of my flyers. And I'm, scheduling meeting blocks of time so I can call retailers and try and get them to carry my product. I'm just not a good employee. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are not good employees. They're excellent entrepreneurs, but they're terrible employees for that reason. And I'm in those ranks, I have to admit. So I'm at work and I'm doing my thing and everything's good. We ended up going through a change in leadership. So the chairman of the company, the gentleman who had started the company, ended up retiring and selling the company to one of his employees. So her family bought the company and they pretty much went through and did a sweep and cleaned house and kind of brought in who they wanted to bring in. So I was one of the people who got let go. I thought that I was safe because I was the only person in my department in Detroit. Not so. So I got let go out the blue. And at the time, I kind of felt like, why didn't you let me know you were doing this? Because they didn't fire me. They didn't lay me off. They just eliminated my job, which, that's kind of a premeditated thing, right? Like, hey, we don't have a need for this job anymore. We're restructuring things. We don't need you anymore. So it seemed to me at the time that they should have said, hey, in 2 weeks, we're not going to need you anymore. Find somewhere else to go, But because they didn't do that, it kind of pushed my back against the wall and forced me to make a way out of no way. So what I haven't said so far is that when I got laid off, I was actually, I had $32 in the bank and I was going through a really, really, really bad divorce. I was 30 days removed from getting my divorce finalized when I got laid off. So I had no money. My son at this time is 2 years old. My family lives 3 hours away. my ex-husband and I are now on very decent terms. We're on pretty good terms. I'll even go as far as to call us, friends. But at the time, that was not the case. We were going through divorce, and so it was really, really hard. And I remember getting laid off. I was carrying my box of stuff out, and I texted my friend, and I was like, I just got laid off, smiley face. And she's like, smiley face? Oh, what's wrong with you? Let's go to lunch. We need to go talk. So she's like, what are you going to do? I was like, you know what? I don't know, but I've been praying for a long time for God to send me a very clear and convincing sign as to when he wanted me to leave so I could do Naturalicious full time. And my plan was for Naturalicious to just kind of, maintain itself as I got through the divorce. Once I got through the divorce, I was planning to stack my money back up and then leave my job. That didn't happen because, again, I asked God for a very clear and convincing sign because I don't do well with subtleties. And I don't know what's more clear or convincing than you ain't got no money and you have a 2-year-old to feed and a mortgage due and you got this divorce that's going on. So I was like, I really, maybe this is him telling me, you know what, you need to do this, And she was like, girl, I don't know. You need to go find a job. And I was like, I don't have time for that. At the level that I was working at, there's not just a one interview deal. You go, you get one interview, you have another interview and a third and maybe a fourth, and then you get the job, and it's like, I don't have time for that. I got a mortgage due. I got bills due. I got a baby to feed. I need something I can make money on today. The only thing I know I can make money on today with outside of hitting the pole somewhere is Naturalicious, So since the pole wasn't an option, Naturalicious it was. And so the date I got laid off was March 4th of 2013. March 4th of 2013, that exact same day was the date I officially started my business. And, a lot of people at the time would probably be like, why would you start your business when you have $32 in the bank? But I found in my life another realization is that I am probably a bit more of a risk taker than a lot of people. And I think that as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to have that almost seemingly unhealthy level of risk or risk, that you can withstand a certain level of risk that most people can't. And so that's what I did. And officially, that's when my business got started, was the same day I got laid off. And again, because my back was against the wall, I didn't have the luxury of doubting myself. I had to make every move my best move.
Wow, that is so crazy. I mean, but you know what? You're right. My thing is you ask for a sign. He gives it to you. You can't be mad about it. You got to figure out, okay, so now he gave this to me. Now I got to figure out, okay, what's the next step? Now I got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So first of all, where did the name from? Because names are very important.
Yeah. So the name was something that came to me because when I try to sit down and name things, it always sounds super corny, And so I was like, let me just let this kind of marinate and come to me. What I wanted it to be a name that sounded fun and feminine. I also wanted it to be a name that was not limiting. So I didn't want it to be like Gwen's Hair Company, for example, because who knows, one day we may do stuff other than just hair, right? Or one day we may not do hair at all, who knows? But I didn't want it to be limiting to that. I also didn't want it to be something that was like timely. I hear like a lot of business names that come along and they're like tied to some sort of like term that people are using currently. And I think that's such a bad move because, if you're like, bye Felicia hair care, and then 2 years from now, no one's saying bye Felicia anymore. You sound really lame and dated, So right. I didn't want that. And then I also wanted it to be something that you kind of sort of knew what it might be by the name, but you may not know exactly. So for instance, Naturalicious, it has something to do with natural something. You may not know if it's food, you may not know if it's, hair or body care, but something about it is natural. And licious is just a very feminine, play on delicious, obviously. So that it served both needs. And it just kind of like, just kind of came to me one day. And I was like, Naturalicious, I like that. Let's go with that. And, when I started kind of researching it to see how it was being used or if it was being used, I found that not a lot, but some women were actually using that to describe themselves. So I was like, oh, this is a term that my audience is already familiar with anyway. This makes sense. Let me go ahead and trademark this and make this my business name. So.
Oh, that is cool. So where did the logo then come from?
The logo came from a designer that I was working with out of Utah. I found him on Elance. Elance is no longer in existence, but I found him on Elance. And I always say this, like, it's not necessary for you to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on your logos and things like that. You know, I think I paid this guy like $60 for my logo. We went through a number of iterations, and I will say that the first set of logo options he sent me, I did not like, but I liked a few pieces of different ones. So the woman with the circle for the O was in one logo, and then the rest of it was in another part of the logo. So we put that together. And then the first silhouette of the woman, she didn't look like my audience. She looked very European, her silhouette. And I said, I need her nose rounder. I need her lips fuller. I need her forehead more pronounced. I need her chin out a little bit more, because I need the people who this is targeting to understand that this is for them, but we're also not excluding other people. So like now she kind of looks like she might be a little bit racially ambiguous, right? But you definitely don't just see her and say, oh, that's a white lady. Or you may not even say, oh, that's a black lady, but you don't feel excluded either. And that was important for me, that whoever was looking at this, particularly the people who I was making it for who look like me, that they felt like this was something for them. And also she's brown. So, you know, brown like us.
Right.
So yeah, so
that's cool.
Yeah.
So before you left your job, did you already have the products in a store?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I had the products, I had the website up, I had the logo, I had the name. I had just kind of started, you know, doing stuff. My labels were very basic. I created the labels, and I am not a graphic designer, so you can imagine what they look like. But they were good to get started with. They served their purpose. So I was selling stuff online, but, you know, kind of sales trickling in here and there.
Okay.
But no stores.
So first of all, we have a question. What did your mom that talked to you out of journalism say about you starting a business on the day you were laid off?
Well, I didn't tell her, actually.
Smart girl. Smart girl. Girl after my own heart.
I told her I had gotten laid off, but I didn't tell her I had. She already knew I had, you know, the hobby, but she didn't know I was going to go full time with the business. She thought that I was going to, you know, search for a job. And again, you got to understand, my mom is 70. She just turned 70 last month. She's been married for 50 years to my dad. She comes from an era where, you know, you work at a job for 100,000 years and then you get your pension and you retire. You know, you go to college to get a job. That's kind of where she comes from. But once she started to see that, you know, I was kind of surviving and my bills were getting paid and I wasn't asking her for money, and I was only funding things through Naturalicious, she's been like completely 100% like on board and supportive. So yeah, I didn't tell her at first.
I completely understand. And your mother sounds like a wonderful woman, just like mine.
Yes, exactly.
Same era, Midwestern. Yeah, completely understand.
Yeah.
So, so you got the logo, you got the website. So what did you do? What was like the next step? Because I know actually off the top of my head, I know 2 people that have hair product lines they want to start, but they, you know, if it's not one thing, it's another. There's all these reasons they can't get started. And I'm like, I don't think, you know, I just know after I read your story before, I was like, there's no reason that, you know, 2-income household could really not get this started.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think, and you know, I've said this, and I said this in the Essence article, and I say it all the time. I cannot take credit for it. I actually heard Marshawn Evans say it, and I've been saying it ever since I heard her say it, is that waiting is not a wealth strategy. And I take that with me all the time, because all you do is end up delaying your prosperity and your potential for wealth building. I don't believe in struggling, you know, and so I believe in, you know, figuring out how you can not struggle. Like, it's not okay to struggle. I don't believe that we were put here to struggle. And there are times where you're going to have to struggle, but your whole life doesn't have to be a struggle, you know? And so when I started my business, I saw that as a way for me to, you know, build wealth. Like I make more in a month now than I did when I was working at my job, you know, but it didn't start out that way. You know, I had $32 in the bank and I got a 2-year-old and a mortgage due. And I'm like, how am I going to pay my bills? You know, so there was a time of struggle, but I started to build as it grew. So if there's always going to be a reason why you can't do something, you know, like I could have said, well, you know what? I only got $32 in the bank right now. Let me just kind of hold off on this business thing and let me just, you know, get another job, let me stack my money up, and then one day I will do that. Well, guess what? Right now my son is about to start kindergarten. So then I could say, okay, well, I was going to start it before he went to kindergarten, but I didn't get a chance to. So now I got to wait till he, you know, gets to middle school or whatever. You know, there's always a reason why you shouldn't do something. But then there's so many reasons why you should. And for me, you know, my son is 5 and all he really knows is naturalistic. He doesn't remember me having a job. He was 2 when I got laid off. So all he knows is naturalistic. And he says all the time, Mommy, first of all, the most beautiful thing I love that he says to me is that he tells me all the time he loves my hair, which I think is awesome. But the second thing is that he always says, Mommy, I want to be just like you. I want to have my own. He said, I want to have my own naturalicious. So, you know, that might mean one of two things. It may be I want to have my own business, where it might be I want to have, you know, I want to run naturalicious when I get older. But either way, all he knows is entrepreneurship, you know, and he'll have the option to choose if he wants to go get a job or if he wants to be his own boss. But to me, I could wait all this time up until who knows when he graduated high school. You know, I'll be in my 50s when he graduates high school, probably late 40s, something like that. You know, and it's like it could be forever. You're always waiting. So stop waiting. It's not a wealth strategy. And I think if you think about that phrase, it will kind of make you feel like, dang, I could have made a lot of money 20 years ago, but I waited until the right opportunity. It's never a right opportunity. Never. So just do it.
This is true. This is true. But that is just, I think that's so remarkable. Just, you know, my whole thing is you don't try, you just do.
You just do. I mean, I do things all the time and I don't know what I'm doing. Like right now we're moving our production facilities. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so scared, but I know it has to be done. And if I keep waiting, I'm delaying things because there's things that we can't do in our current facility. We've outgrown it, you know, and I could continue to wait until I feel comfortable. I could just go do it and learn it as I do it, you know, and that's what's going to happen because, you know, we're out here to win. You know, we're not out here to just be mediocre.
Right. So how did you get an awesome mentor like Alfred Edmonds?
Well, I actually entered the 2014 Black Enterprise Entrepreneurs Conference. I entered the elevator pitch competition. It almost didn't happen. I entered at the very last minute. My camera that I had to record my entry on, it broke. It stopped working. It's just like everything that could go wrong went wrong. And I finally got my entry in literally the day that it was due. And so I was at a meeting or conference or something. I remember getting the email that said, hey, you've been selected as a finalist. And I was so excited. So I got selected as a finalist. I ended up going on to win the pitch competition. And as a perk of winning the pitch competition, you get to be mentored by one of the Black Enterprise, you know, kind of higher ups. And I asked specifically for Alfred. I had been following him for a while on social media. I know he talks a lot about wealth building and that sort of thing. I know he judges a lot of pitch competitions. So I asked specifically if Alfred could be my mentor. And he's been my mentor ever since. He doesn't have to continue after your like little 6-month period of time where he's kind of tethered to you, but he's been my mentor ever since. And he's been absolutely phenomenal.
That is wonderful. So now, of course, you have this title. You are the only person with the natural hair product patent. How did you even know to do that? And I guess my thought is all these other products out here, none of them were patent?
Yeah. So let me kind of answer the first part of your question. So okay. I didn't really think that I could get a patent for my hair products. And it was really my mom who was like, Gwen, you need to patent this. And I'm like, Mom, you can't get a patent on a hair product. And she's like, how do you know? I'm like, well, how do you know? I'm like, why do you think you can, what makes you think you can get a hair product patent? And she's like, well, you should just try, because what's going to happen, Gwen, is you're going to be sitting at home and you're going to be watching TV, and some big company, Revlon, L'Oreal, whoever, is going to come along with a product just like yours, and they're going to have way more budget to market it. And you're going to be sitting at home twiddling your thumbs, pissed off because they came along and knocked off what you did. And I was like, she's right. I would be really mad, but even then I was just like, I don't think I can get a patent on this. And to be honest, my research in getting the product patented to even see if it was possible was really just to make her be quiet, because she just kept nagging me about this. She was like, Gwen, have you looked into that patent? I'm like, no, Mom. Why not, Gwen? Well, you can't get a patent on the hair product. She's like, all right, whatever. So every time we would talk, it was always the same conversation. I was like, let me just look this up so I can make this woman be quiet. And so I started researching, and I found that I could indeed get a patent on a hair product. So kudos to my mom for making me think of something I didn't think was possible. But I realized that I could, but I also realized it was very expensive. So it was like between $10,000 and $20,000, depending on who you hired and how much work they had to do. And I really wasn't about to spend $10,000 or $20,000. You got to understand, again, I'm a single mom, and I'm kind of like, at that time, I was just maybe a few months into my business, with it being an actual business. I couldn't afford, I didn't have $10,000 or $20,000. And if I did, I couldn't afford to just spend it on a maybe. And so I realized that I could actually apply for the patents on my own, but it was going to take me a lot of time. So what I did was I really looked at it as I was going back to college. So I said, okay, I have Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. My son is at school during the day, every day, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I can devote 3 hours a day to this. So it was really like my class in patent law. And I went to the library, and I would spend a lot of time at the library, made really, really good friends with the librarians. Where I live, there's a whole section devoted to intellectual property. And so I just immersed myself into this. I learned the history of patent law, where it was now, the legislation that was on the books that might come around by the time my patent got granted. So I just really, really learned about everything there was to learn about patent law. And here in Detroit, there's also a United States Patent and Trademark Office here in the city, the satellite office. And so I utilized that office also. And so all in all, it took me about 8 months to learn the law sufficiently enough where I felt comfortable actually applying. So 8 months to learn it, and then I applied, and I had another 15 months before I got the patent granted. So all in all, it was, over 2 years before I actually, from start to finish. So, and I didn't know, to answer the second part of your question, I didn't know that I was the first. I had no clue. And to be quite honest, I don't aspire to be the only. I want other women, particularly Black women, to understand the value of intellectual property. I hear people all the time say, oh, don't sell your company. And not just to me, but to anybody, don't sell your company, don't sell your company. But what a lot of times we fail to realize is that you can sell the company and you can still own the business, right? So, for example, if I were to sell my company to somebody and I own the patent to my products, right? And I can negotiate that. Where it's like, okay, you give me, let's say, $20 billion. Let's think big here, right? Give me $20 billion for my company, but for every bottle of my product that has a patent on it that you sell, you got to pay me $2, right? Or $1 or what have you. And if they're selling 20 million bottles a year, that's a heck of a lot of money, right? So that money still stays in our community. Businesses are kind of like, I see businesses a lot like houses, when you buy a house, you hope eventually it appreciates in value and you sell it, right? And sometimes you don't sell it. Sometimes you keep the house in your family forever. Same thing with businesses. Sometimes, you start a business, you hope it appreciates in value and you sell it. Or you can keep it in your family forever. You choose to do what you want to do, but understand that with intellectual property, you have the option to do so many things beyond just that company. Think about like the Nike logo or the trademark or just the swoosh. The swoosh is trademarked and it has a dollar value tied to it, completely separate from the Nike business. So there's the word Nike, or the Nike with the swoosh. All those things have dollar value tied to them. So I really want us as people to start thinking beyond just the company itself. I want us to start thinking more as investors in our companies.
That is really amazing. And wow, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Lord have mercy. Intellectual property law, really? Okay. Wow. Wow. That is amazing. So, first of all, if anyone has any questions, you can go on YouTube and type questions. You can tweet them to @Ask Dr. Renee. Or if you're on Google Plus watching us, you can hit the little squares in the upper right-hand corner. And Q&A will pop up. Hit the Q&A button and then type your question on the right-hand side of the screen. But Gwen, this has been such amazing information. So if you were to speak to someone who is just down on their luck, but they have some brilliant idea, what would you say to them?
Well, I would ask them first I would ask them I'm trying to get my thoughts together. What makes it brilliant, right? Because a lot of times, usually when we have brilliant ideas, not everybody else thinks that they're brilliant, right? So what benefit does your idea serve to other people? Because everybody subscribes to the same radio station, right? It's always WIIFM, and that's what's in it for me. So if it's not something in it for them, your brilliant idea may only have value to you, right? So what benefit does it give to people? Does it save them time? Does it save them money? Does it enhance their life? Does it make does it make them look better? Does it make them feel better? Like, what does it do for them? Does it make them feel like they're on a different, like a more affluent level? What does it actually do for them? And if you can't answer that, then you've got to go back to the drawing board, because you have to have some sort of unique selling proposition. There's a ton of widgets, but what makes this widget so much more special? What makes a Rolex better than a Timex? What makes a Victoria's Secret better than, Treasure Secrets, which they sell at Walmart, which, by the way, is also made by Victoria's Secret. So the perception
just like the Spanx thing. There's a Spanx at Target.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not called Spanx, though. Yeah.
Right. It's assets, because I buy those. I don't get the Spanx, so they're expensive. But
they're all by Sarah Blakely.
Exactly. Who is like my mentor in my head. I absolutely love Sarah Blakely. But yeah, so what does it do? So that's the first thing I would ask them. I would tell them to make sure that they have some sort of USP. And even with hair care, there's a lot of hair care products. And I can't tell you the number of people who come up to me and say, hey, I have a hair care product that I started in my kitchen, just like you. Can you help me figure out how to sell it? And I'm like, okay, most of the time, those of us who are starting hair care products, right, we were the customer at some point. So why did you start this? Why did you create this? Obviously, you created because you didn't see it in the marketplace. So what did you create that's different? Like for me, it wasn't a matter of just trying to create another hair product. My thing was like, I don't got time to be spending 4 hours on wash day, right? That was my problem. And as a result of saving time, I also ended up saving a lot of money. And as a busy mom, as a parent, as a working woman at the time, those things were important to me. Saving time was first, and then saving money as a byproduct was second. And so I found that my customer base, my main customer, is actually a woman who's between 25 and 45, pretty much well established into her career. She may have one child under the age of 18, and her main thing is to save time, right? So my hair product is not for everybody who's natural. It's for people who want to save significant amounts of time, but keep their hair looking amazing in the process, right? So second thing is to understand that everybody is not your customer, and that's okay. You may make skincare products, but everybody with skin is not your target customer. Your product's not for everybody. The riches are in the niches. So you need to drill down until you figure out that niche. You'll make so much more money owning a niche than trying to sell to everybody. Those would probably be the first two things I would tell somebody.
Okay. And then please tell people, how did social media help your business to grow?
Well, social media was free, still is, and it was what I had budget for. So with $32, I couldn't spend it on advertising. I had to spend that $32 on, bottles that I could find on clearance for like pennies on a dollar and raw materials, and then utilize the sales from that to funnel back into the business to help it grow. So I utilized social media to basically get the word out. So the first couple things that I did was to find people online who were not necessarily YouTube celebrities or, you know, natural hair celebrities, but people who had a decent following and who I felt might be interested in my product. So kind of up and coming people who I knew would basically try my stuff for free and not charge because I have a budget to pay them. So I found them on Instagram. I sent them a message and said, hey, I have this product. I think you might be interested in it. Think you might like it. Let me know what your address is. I'll send you a bottle for free. I sent them a bottle and they would then blog about it or Instagram about it or YouTube about it. And that was initially what helped get the word out in the beginning. So a lot of that happened. And then we got some press. We were in like Mommy Noir, Madame Noir, Hello Beautiful wrote about the product and all of that. So that helped a lot, you know, press and things like that. But what I did is that I allowed the business to tell me when to grow. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of watching what's on TV and thinking that that's the reality. So they see a lot of, you know, all they see is kind of like the sexiness, right? They don't see the moments when you're starting out or even when you're knee deep into your business and you've got to buy raw materials and then you also have a car note that's due, but you only got money for one. And you're like, oh, wait, okay, should I pay for the car note? Or wait, if I don't pay for the car note, then they're going to repo my car and I won't have a way to take my products to my customers. Or do I buy raw materials? Because if I don't buy raw materials, then I don't have anything to sell. You know, it's like that conversation that happens. And that's real life as an entrepreneur. We don't see that on TV. We see, oh, I started my business 3 years ago and I'm making $700,000 a year. Like, that's not what really happens to most people, you know? So yeah, I think I've kind of veered off on whatever your question was, but but yes, I hope I answered it. I don't even remember what it was, Renee. I'm sorry. What was your question?
I'm trying to remember what it was too.
Whatever I started talking about, I think I answered it in the beginning, and then I kind of moved off of it. So I think I got.
I can't remember. Look, we both can't remember, but it was good. Whatever the answer was, great. So, what is your definition of success?
That's really good. For me, success is really having joy, which I believe is a stronger sense of it's a stronger word than happy. You know, really having joy. I find that things that made me happy have evolved over time with my business. So I used to really, really love making products. And once we started getting like so many products that I just couldn't keep up, I didn't enjoy it anymore because it got to be stressful. Then I hired somebody, or actually a few people, to make the products for me and to bottle them and things like that so I could work on the business. And I think it's okay to allow yourself to let your joy evolve. It used to bring me a lot of joy to travel all over the place and go to different conferences and speak at different places. They used to bring me a lot of joy, and now it doesn't. Like, I like being home. Actually, this year I'm on a conference hiatus. Like, I was just talking to somebody a couple of days ago about this. I'm not going anywhere, nowhere, unless there's a few places I am going. But for the most part, I'm only going places if I'm speaking there and they're bringing me there to speak. There's one conference that I'm going to that I'm not speaking at, but other than that, I'm staying home because I miss being home with my son on the weekends. You know, like, he's at an age now where he's in science class, a STEM education class on the weekends, and I want to take him. I lived out of a suitcase for the past like 2 years, and that was fun at the time. Now it's not. You know, maybe next year I'll go back to going everywhere, but this year I just kind of want to be home. And it brings me joy to pack his lunch for school every day and pick him up from school. Like, I really like that. So for me, success is doing what brings you joy and not feeling like something should bring you joy. Like, you don't have to feel like you should enjoy grinding hard all the time as an entrepreneur or not getting sleep, the team no sleep. Like, that's craziness, you know? Like, you don't have to, like, I feel like we've been fed this like bill of goods that say, as an entrepreneur, you have to grind all the time and you can't get any sleep and you have to like survive off of coffee because coffee is a food group for you. And, you know, that's supposed to bring you joy because it brings you monetary gain. And most times it doesn't. And I feel like we've been sold this thing that like these things should bring you joy, but that doesn't bring me joy. I really have a lot of joy going to bed and getting sleep. I enjoy this tremendously. I enjoy going to the gym and doing my dance class that I talked about earlier. You know, that's the stuff that brings me joy. So that's success for me. Money is a kind of like a byproduct of that. And money is always great. I mean, we survive with money. You know, we can't live without it, but it's always good to have a good amount of it. But really for me, it's like hanging out with my son and like, you know, just being here and seeing the joy that I give to my customers. Like I have a group called the Naturalicious Nation, which you're in on Facebook, and you know, to see like some of the pictures that people post, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at my twist out. Like it took me 25 minutes and it only takes me 5 hours or whatever, you know, like seeing that I've provided something that's really literally changed their life for the better in some sort of way. That's what brings me joy. And that's success for me.
That sums it up. Please tell us how we can continue to support you. I'll make sure I can put all the links of whatever below the box, but in the box below, but please let us know how to find you and all that great stuff. And the question was about social media, so you did answer it. I remember.
Okay, good. Yes, so my website is naturalicious.net, not .com, .net. Definitely join me in the Naturalicious Nation on Facebook. Literally just go to Facebook and type in Naturalicious Nation. You'll find us. It is a private closed group, but if you request access, I will be more than happy to let you in. As long as you're not going to spam everybody, you're more than welcome to be in the group. And then on Instagram, we are also Naturalicious and the number 1 at the end. Oh, and by the way, everybody who's watching can get a free copy of our ebook, which normally sells on our website for $10, but for a limited time, it's free. If you go to mytophairtips.com, all you gotta do is put in your name and email address and it'll automatically email it to you. So it's mytophairtips.com and it is 5 insider secrets for growing your hair faster. So if you like that.
Oh, wonderful. mytophairtips.com. We will definitely put that below.
Yes.
Lovely. So everyone go and grab that ebook because who doesn't want longer hair, right?
Right. I mean, even if your hair is short, you still want to make sure it's healthy, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
The Black Women's Expo is this weekend, so we're not going to have a show on Sunday just because I might not have a voice Sunday evening, first of all. Second of all, I'm not going to make it back here in time. So we won't have a show on Sunday, but hopefully we will start Music Mondays next week. Let's cross our fingers. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Yes. Thank you, Gwen. And everyone, please check out Naturalicious. She's in several Whole Foods. Of course, you can get all her products online. She's in a couple other grocery store chains in the Midwest. But please, let's help her to continue to grow. There's room for all of us out here. So Gwen, I will chat with you in a second. But everyone, I will see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for having me.